A lot of businesses think that break fix IT is cheaper than managed IT because you only pay when something breaks, but that only looks true on the surface. There's a lot of hidden costs with break fix IT, stuff that shows up in lost productivity, downtime, reoccurring issues, surprise invoices, and constant disruption. If your team keeps dealing with the same tech problems over and over and over, you're already paying for IT. You're just paying for it in the most chaotic, unpredictable way possible. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Brad Nelson, the CEO of FRCS Tech, and I help businesses get proactive about their IT and eliminate IT headaches forever. So is break-fix IT actually cheaper, or does proactive managed IT save more money over time? So first, let's start by defining what each model is. Like, what is break-fix IT? What is managed IT? Break-fix IT is simply when you wait until something breaks and then you call IT to come fix it. Now, this could be your own internal IT team, or it could be outsourced. Maybe you don't have any sort of IT support partner, but if something breaks and you call the local computer store and they come out and fix it for you, that's break fix IT. It's being reactive about your IT and technology. This is also where you are paying per incident, usually per hour or per project, when something breaks or something has to be done. There's no monitoring, there's no planning, there's no maintaining. It's just when something breaks, you fix it. That's why it's called break fix. Break fix is built around interruption. So something has to fail before support starts. So like, for example, let's say you have an employee that can't print. You call whatever IT help you have to say like, hey, I can't print, but I need to print this document. And then somebody comes and helps resolve that problem, whatever it may be. Your printer's off, or your drivers need to be updated, or there's some other problem going on. So another example is, like malware or viruses. Somebody downloads something they weren't supposed to, installs malware, they're getting pop-ups and computers running slow. So you call IT, somebody comes and removes those viruses for you and, wags their finger at you and tells you, don't click on links you don't know, So that's also break fix. So managed IT is the other side of the coin. It's the more proactive approach. It's making sure everything is monitored and everything is updated and maintained. And there's plans put in place for, when equipment gets too old, or disaster plans for if something does fail. And most of the time, this approach can catch catastrophic problems before they happen. So the pay structure is obviously different. Instead of just paying when something breaks and you have to fix it, you're usually paying some sort of service fee monthly or annually to have this maintenance and this planning and this ongoing proactive IT service. So with managed IT, not only are you getting the help desk support, you're also getting people are watching your environment, making sure that things are running smoothly so you don't get those little interruptions. You also get the strategic planning. You get strategic guidance and planning as far as your technology is concerned, so you don't outgrow your IT, or so that you're purchasing the right software and the right hardware to fit your business needs. Managed IT is designed to reduce the number of problems that you have in the first place, not just respond to them faster. Now, I have to put a little caveat in here that with managed IT services, it's impossible to make anything absolutely bulletproof as far as technology and like cybersecurity is concerned. It's impossible to make anything bulletproof. And there still is a chance that there could be some sort of catastrophic failure where break fix actions have to happen, even with the managed IT. But the whole idea of managed IT is to reduce the amount of break fix incidents, break fix stuff having to happen to as close to zero as possible. And depending on the managed IT service provider, some of them will charge extra for break fix activities, and some will include that in their monthly or annual package. As I briefly mentioned before, there are some hidden costs to being only reactive and only focusing on break fix as far as your IT is concerned. Now, there's the obvious costs of the repair bills, where something breaks, you hire somebody to come out and fix it. You have to pay those people to fix it and get everything repaired, right? But there are hidden costs, things that aren't necessarily as obvious. And those are things like downtime. If you have equipment that goes down, you have to wait for those repair technicians to show up, figure out what the problem was, and then figure out a solution and then implement that solution. And this can take, depending on the problem, this could take just a few minutes, sure. It could also take days or weeks, or in some extreme cases, months. So without those systems, if those systems are broken and you're not able to use them in your business, you have to think about what is the cost of those systems being down, that what is it costing you? If it's some sort of system that your employees use to do their job and they're not able to do their job, at least not as efficiently or as much work as they were doing before because that system is down, you're losing productivity. You're still paying these employees the same wage. You're still offering them the same benefits, even though they're not as effective as employees while that system is down. And this, too, can add up over time and kind of be in the background. So even if you don't have a catastrophic failure, so let's say your systems aren't down, but something is failing or not quite working right, that can cost you productivity as well. If you have a system that is running slower than it should be, then it takes your employees longer to accomplish the same work with that system as if it, versus it working quickly the way it's supposed to. Or if you have a system that is unstable or unreliable, so it's not always available, that can, of course, it's like little mini outages, right? Your employees are not able to be as effective. On top of that, you might have some sort of problem and your employees decide that they should try to troubleshoot it. And at first you might think, okay, I'm already paying them a wage. Like, sure, they can troubleshoot it. I'm okay paying them their hourly wage to try to solve this problem. But what you're not realizing is when you're allowing employees who are not IT employees to do that sort of work, you're effectively paying them twice, because you're paying them their hourly wage to troubleshoot and work on this technology problem, even though that's not their job. And you're losing that much in productivity because they're not doing the job that they were hired to do. Then there's the issue of emergency work is generally more expensive than planned work. I mean, think about this in your own business. If somebody called you up for whatever you do, you build widgets, or, build houses, or you're a plumber or law firm, somebody calls you up with an emergency that you have to respond to right then and there, and you have to set aside all the other work you have, your your hourly rate goes up because you have to set aside all the other work that you still have to do. The other thing, like I mentioned before, is with an emergency thing, you have people that have to be there and they have to figure out what went wrong, how it went wrong. Then they have to come up with a solution to fix what went wrong, and then they have to implement that solution. If you have a solid plan and you have planned work, well, you can schedule it out to where it fits into everybody's schedule. So you're not, there's not as much urgency. The other thing is nothing has randomly gone wrong for you to figure out. So you can, like if you're planning an upgrade, nothing has failed yet. So you don't have to figure out what failed and try to fix what failed. you're planning this upgrade. So you already know what you're going to do, makes the planning stage a lot smoother. And then again, you can schedule that work around when employees or customers or whoever they're not using that system, or at least not using that system as heavily. And usually everything goes smoother and it just ends up being less expensive. Reactive break fix environments also tend to accumulate technical debt. And technical debt is basically kicking the can down the road when it's increasing the cost of future rework. Basically, we see this all the time. You go out to a business where they've outgrown their network, for example, and they have a bunch of consumer grade Wi-Fi routers that they bought at Best Buy and kind of strung them along in this terrible mess of cables to try and extend their Wi-Fi network and to try and create more availability on their network as their business grows. And these little cheap patches and cheap fixes make it more complicated and more difficult to do the rework in the future, especially when none of it's documented. We run into that all the time too. And as far as security is concerned, this is a huge one for reactive break fix environments. The security problems in these environments often go unnoticed for a long time because, I mean, so if there's some sort of security hole and nobody is monitoring any of that, and an attacker finds that security hole, cyber criminals are pretty good at kind of laying low. And unless you are actively monitoring the systems and the technology that you use, they can fly under the radar for a long time. And then pretty soon, you've found out that this cyber criminal has been in your email server monitoring your emails, and they've just, hijacked an email chain and stolen tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars because you didn't know they were in there, and they were able to, redirect some of your emails to somebody who was supposed to be paying you that and steal that money. Or even corporate espionage. If somebody is in your network, monitoring your network traffic, and you don't know about it, and they steal some of your IP, that can be incredibly damaging. And without without the monitoring in place to detect those breaches and then have a plan to mitigate those issues, I mean, they go unnoticed for so long, and the damage just accumulates into something absolutely massive. The other thing that a lot of people don't think about in these reactive break fix environments is your decision making becomes rushed because problems are handled under pressure in an emergency situation. And so you're not able to think through a proper, well-planned solution for your problem. You have to decide now, because if you don't, it could be worse, So that's how you end up with the technical debt as well, is you say, yes, we're going to do this because it's going to be the quickest fix to get us back on track. But it's just a Band-Aid. It's not actually treating the symptom. So with reactive break fix only IT, the repair invoice is not the full cost. The business impact is much bigger, and lost productivity, lost customer trust, you name it, it could end up in cyber attacks that cost you money or reputation. And it's one of those things where it can take you 20 years to build a good reputation as a business, and it can take only 5 minutes to completely ruin it. So I mentioned it a little bit already, but I want to focus a little bit more on not just emergencies, but reoccurring friction. So the compounding effect of small issues can create lots of little expenses here and there, as far as lost productivity or whatnot, like we've already talked about. And that can add up over time, kind of sneakily in the background, almost like microtransactions on a piece of software. You say, "Oh, I'm going to pay $100 a month for this software," but pretty soon, to do the things you want, you've spent $1 here and $2 there, and pretty soon your bill is $500 a month or whatever. I hope you get what I'm saying. Things like slow computers and unreliable networks, login issues, printing issues, communication issues. It all kind of drains momentum and becomes an operational cost that is hard to see in your P&L statements. And the worst thing about these little friction points is your team will stop reporting these problems because they become used to it. They think, oh, this is just how it is. And they end up working around it. And then it doesn't get reported. Not only that, but you might have a great system that's not running right. And then your team hates it because they think that it's terrible because it's slow or unreliable or something like that, even though it could be an absolutely great tool for them to get their job done correctly and in an efficient manner. A business can get used to a broken environment without realizing how much it's actually costing them. Okay, let's do a little bit of math here. Let's say 10 employees each lose 10 to 15 minutes a day in productivity due to this tech friction, these little friction points that they experience throughout the day with your tech environment. That is 100 to 150 minutes a day of lost productivity. And that comes out to what, an hour and a half to 2 hours, a little bit more than that per day of lost productivity. You extend that out over a week, over a month. Over a month, that's like 2,000 minutes of lost time. That's like 35, 45 hours of lost productivity in a month. That is like paying a, a week's salary to one of your employees. And it's all going down the drain just with these little tiny friction points that your employees are experiencing. So if switching to a more proactive managed IT structure, a lot of these things get solved and mitigated. Problems get identified earlier so that you can plan to fix things rather than having to scramble to fix things after something's failed. Maintenance happens as a function, as an operational function to make sure everything is running the way it's supposed to, rather than just after a failure. It's happening on purpose, on a regular schedule. It's kind of like your car. If you don't change the oil in your car and you just keep driving it, eventually you're going to have some catastrophic engine failures. If you regularly change your oil, yeah, things in your engine are still going to wear out, but it is going to last you a whole lot longer. Another thing is your systems will be documented. Your network infrastructure, like your network map and your disaster recovery plan and your backups are planned, documented, verified, and everything is documented. So you don't have that issue of, oh no, something's broken. We have to figure out what went wrong. We have to figure out how it went wrong, how we're going to fix it, and then we have to implement it. You don't have to figure all that out. Or like the example I gave earlier of the patched together network where, people just keep adding devices to try and extend the network. One of the biggest problems with that, coming like when we go in and we rework those systems, is that nobody knows where all those devices are, and nobody knows where everything is connected, and nobody knows how each thing is configured. And so we have to go and reverse engineer all that and make sure that we get everything and rework it that way. But with proactive managed IT, all of that is documented from the beginning. So even if somebody new comes on, They can just refer to the documentation, know exactly where to go and what to do, and it just smooths everything out. With a more proactive approach, you get patch management and security controls all improve because everything's monitored and everything's on a schedule. And budgeting for your IT and technology needs becomes a breeze because your costs are more predictable. You have all of this information on, where you're going as a business and then how your IT fits into that. Everything is documented, everything is maintained, everything is monitored. So then the your IT team can say, "Hey, this system is aging, and as we're growing, it's going to need upgraded in the future. Our backup server is starting to run out of space because we've brought on more employees, which means more computers, which means more backups. We need to expand the space in our backup server, or we need to replace the backup server in the next year, stuff like that. So you can plan your budgets instead of having a random emergency cost. Oh no, our backup server crashed. We need to replace it or we need to repair it. And all of a sudden you have this huge unexpected bill. You can plan for that in the future and everything just flows between IT operations, finance, all of that. And with this, the leadership in your business gets visibility into the risks and priorities of your IT environment. They have a finger on the pulse. They have that data, that information because of the monitoring and the maintaining to make these decisions. And again, proactive support does not mean that nothing ever goes wrong. It just means that there are fewer surprises, faster recovery when things do go wrong, better visibility, and less wasted time. And again, nothing is bulletproof. Nothing lasts forever, but with a proactive approach, you can reduce that break fix cost and that reactivity to next to zero. The goal is not perfection. The goal is a more stable and less fragile IT infrastructure. And ultimately, a more stable and less fragile business overall. So there are times and places where each model is applicable. Now, I know I probably kind of put down reactive break fix IT and really kind of propped up proactive managed IT because that is being proactive about your IT and treating your IT as an investment rather than a cost is the way to go. But there are some situations where managed IT might not actually be the right fit for your business. Now, let me explain. If your business is very small, like I'm talking less than 10 employees, if it's you're just a solo entrepreneur or it's you and one other person, the cost of managed IT might actually end up being more than just calling somebody when something breaks. Now, I would argue that there are certain industries where that's not the case. If you're in some sort of heavily regulated industry, like if you have to be HIPAA compliant, for example, the cost of not doing things right, even when you're that small, can be very great with fines for failing audits. And, if you have, in the case of HIPAA, if you have private health information that gets leaked that you were responsible for and you didn't have the proper things in place, that can end up costing you way more. But if you're a coffee shop, and you have just a couple computers, break fix IT might be the way to go for you. Another situation where more reactive break fix IT is okay is if your business doesn't really rely on technology for critical daily operations. For example, I have a friend who he is an owner operator. It's just him. And he has an oil change business, a mobile oil change business. So he goes around and changes people's oil for a living. And he has a cell phone, and he has a calendar and He has some social media accounts, and that's the extent of his technology. Or, well, I think he has some bookkeeping software too. But it's probably not worth it for him to pay for managed IT because he really has no IT infrastructure. He has a computer and a cell phone, and that's it. And that's fine. If his computer breaks down, he can call a local computer store or something like that to get his computer fixed. Another situation is if downtime is inconvenient, but not really costly. This kind of goes with the technology not being critical to daily operations too. Uh, it's, maybe you do have quite a few computers and you work on them on a daily basis, but like if they went down, you could still do your job. Or if they're kind of slow, like it's not super critical to what you do every day, then reactive break fix IT is probably fine. But if your business depends on technology every day and it's a core part of how you do business, proactive managed IT is definitely the way to go. If you have multiple employees that rely on shared systems, cloud apps, file sharing, email, and all that, it's really good to have that monitored and to be proactive about it and to treat IT as an investment. So basically, the more that your business depends on technology, the less sense reactive IT usually makes. So at the end of the day, the question is not really what costs less on paper, but the real question is more what creates less disruption, less downtime, and less chaos for your business. Because ultimately, the smoother your business runs and the more operationally efficient it is, the more money you're going to make and the more impact you're going to be able to make. So the goal is not faster chaos. It's not fixing the problems faster. The goal is fewer problems in the first place and making things more predictable. If your business is constantly dealing with reoccurring IT issues, slow systems, surprise problems, or security gaps, it may be time to look at a more proactive approach. So if that sounds like you, we want to help. So reach out to us. You can email us at info@frcstech.com. You can visit us at www.frcstech.com. You can find me personally on LinkedIn and just send me a connection request, send me a DM, and we'll set up a time where we can evaluate whether managed IT makes sense for your business. Thanks for watching this video. I hope that you learned something that you can apply in your business today. And if you want to maybe learn about some other technology and IT related things that you could maybe implement in your business today, there'll be another video on screen here. Go ahead and click on that and maybe learn some more IT stuff.